we are welcomed by a special guest this morning, Marty. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me here. It is a highlight of my career to be with you. I'm learning so much from you guys. It's just an amazing time, amazing expression. I am Bishop Dwayne Brock. I serve on the advisory board of Erie Bank, where I am the student, learning and adopting and adapting to financial literacy and all the dynamics thereof. I'm just excited to be here with you guys, and I thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity.
Bishop, one of the reasons we obviously have you here is it's very difficult with our upbringing to really understand Black history. We want to embrace it and recognize it, but we thought, let's get somebody who really lived it and can help us understand it. So can you give us a little bit of your perspective on Black History Month?
Wow, Black History Month is a methodology in trying to correct many of the atrocities of yesterday in American history. It started with a gentleman by the name of Carter Woodson. Carter Woodson was the second African-American male to receive a PhD from Harvard. And Carter Woodson was motivated by, number one, Woodrow Wilson had become president in 1912. Woodrow Wilson was a recognized white supremacist. And then the first motion picture in this country by D.W. Griffin entitled Birth of a Nation. It came from a book called The Klansman, which it depicted African Americans in a very degrading way. And so those type of things. And then, of course, in 1923, what happened in the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But then that same dynamic, it happened in a place called Rosewood, where white supremacists came in and literally destroyed the whole town, lynched African-American males, castrated them. And so all of these events began to germinate inside of Carter Woodson, and he wanted to do something that would indeed preserve the very rich and satisfying history of African Americans. And Carter comes from the perspective that if we knew really what happened in history, then blacks and whites and Jews and Gentiles and Protestants and Catholics who could come together and have a wholesome, the word you said recently, an orchestra within our country making beautiful music. And so that's what Carter Woodson did. And he brought about certain things and dynamics in history that we've never heard of before. For an example, we tell you about Bass Reeves. Now, you've never heard of Bass Reeves at all, but Bass Reeves was an African-American police officer in the Wild West in those days. Okay, he was so good at what he did, they coined a phrase about him, and his life inspired something we all know called the Lone Ranger.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
That's cool.
Came from Bass Reeves. I mean, there are many, many dynamics. Let me give you another example. King Leopold of Belgium came into the Congo, and where in a 13-year period, 20 million Congolese, 20 million Africans were destroyed and they were killed. We call it the Black Holocaust. But again, we never hear about those dynamics in history whatsoever. And then we've learned about the many inventions. For example, Louis Latimer, and he invented the incandescent light bulb. You never hear about things like that at all, or the gentleman that invented the traffic light, or the fountain pen, or the whaling harpoon, or the first man on the North Pole, Matthew Henson. There are a lot of dynamics that he wants to bring about a correction about history. And so many people have critiqued or criticized, African American history in the context of Black History Month. Our response has always been that if we would tell the truth about history, there would be no need for an African American or a Black History Month. So that's what Carter Woodson was endeavoring to do. And from this point on, you will find that there are many, many, many Black heroes. And I think Mike, the important thing about that is in our young people today, and I'm in Erie, I've buried more young people who have died unnecessarily of gun violence than all the other local pastors combined. If these young people would know that they come from a very rich history, a very rich legacy, then it will be a tool to curb a lot of youth violence within our communities. So that's my perspective on African American History Month. Sometimes we have to have a very uncomfortable conversation, but I think it is necessary to have that conversation if we're going to live here in this country together.
I agree, and I think, you brought up the word that it's the truth. Look, from all my upbringing, I always said you tell the truth, you only have to remember one story. I understand there can be more perspectives, but it's the truth of Black history that's really celebrated here. Again, and it's not always a comfortable history. I'm going to close with this, Bishop Brock, because I think you embody this. When we talk about not only Black History Month, but again, looking forward to our community, I'm reminded of the words that I hear in a song in church that come from Micah, and it's that we're called to act with justice, we're called to love tenderly, we're called to serve one another and walk humbly with God. You are a representation of that, and let's ask everyone to do that today. Happy Valentine's Day, and again, thank you so much, Bishop Brock.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
All right.